back, everybody, to the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr. My guest today is, I think, somebody we all know. We probably all purchased a mystery box from this guy at some point or another. The way that I found him and somebody that I decided that I wanted to follow, it was when Chadwick Boseman passed away. And he actually did an IG post about how people were kind of taking advantage of that and were jacking prices up on books and different things. And it was something that he wasn't necessarily for. And he just kind of did this, this spiel on that. And I was like, okay, I dig that guy's vibe. That's cool. I feel the same way. So I started following him. I bought several mystery boxes from him over time, and just books in general. He's a great follow on IG. He's got a lot of cool stuff he does on there. Also on YouTube now. He moved one of the things we'll talk about over to YouTube. But everybody join me in welcoming to 10 Questions, Grant's Comics.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I was already prepared to do a shtick, and then you ended up with such a sincere introduction that threw me off. In my head, I was going to be I'm happy to be on 10 Questions, but I'm sorry to hear that clearly you're finishing up this project because it must be the end of the road if you're interviewing me.
No, like you have always been on my list, right? But there, as somebody that I wanted to talk to, because early on in my journey in this, starting to buy mystery boxes and do different things, we came across each other, and like I said, I started buying your boxes, and I follow you on Instagram, and I find your content interesting and the things that you do interesting, and your mystery boxes were always one of my favorites to open because they were different. They were different than everybody else's. They weren't the same. So I always enjoyed it. So we'll get into all that, but let's just start with question one. And that question is the same for everybody, okay? And that is, what or who got you into comic books?
Comics have been a part of my life as long as I can remember. Like, I can't remember the actual first comic I had, but I never remember not having comics. I'm sure it was a Looney Tunes, something Daffy, Donald, Bugs, whatever it was. But I can remember maybe maybe first or second grade, I had an issue of Amazing Spider-Man number 170. And for some reason, I can just vividly remember being on our outdoor porch with this comic, looking at the indica on the inside, and it said 1977. And it dawned on me at that point, even in first or second grade, that meant I had this comic since I was 2 years old, being born in 75. And that's where it hit me. Like, even at that age, I'm like, how have I hung on to this comic in acceptable condition since I was 2 years old? So clearly I was just born with this ability to, hug them and coddle them and take care of them. And Amazing Spider-Man 170 just always stood out to me because it happened to be that issue at that time. But it was always, and I think it was just they were handed to me by family members. We didn't have all the forms of entertainment then that all the kids have now. So, it was an easy thing to give kids, especially back in the 1970s, as a way to entertain them and, let their imagination run wild.
Sure. No, I think we all kind of went. Did you ever go through that period where, like, you collected? Like, when I was younger, I read books, I collected trading cards, all those things. And then there was a period of time where I stepped away from it. And then I came back a few years ago, once my kids got old enough to where, as I like to say, they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. Did you go through that as well, or did you collect the whole time?
Oh, no. I had a major break. Basically, as soon as I hit 20 years old and real life set in and real bills and poor choices in relationships that take all your money, that's where the collecting stopped there for, oh my gosh, a decade plus, honestly. Like, I would always follow it to some extent, especially through like Wizard magazine and stuff like that. So maybe occasionally I'd grab a Wizard magazine to kind of read up on the news and that kind of thing. But yeah, I was out for a good 10, 15 years there as far as being a regular buyer.
Yeah. Now, I think a lot of us go through that. I hear that a lot. I don't hear a lot of people, but I think you're right. I think real life sets in, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You get, well, I was in college, I was broke.
yeah.
And then, I didn't have the disposable income. I do now, and I think that has a lot to do with it too. When you're collecting as you're young, your parents are generally buying that stuff for you. As of, like you said, because I'm the same age. So during that time, we didn't have these, with 1,000 different apps on them. We didn't have streaming services left and right. That was your entertainment was, reading a book, a comic book.
Yeah. You mentioned the college thing. It's funny because when I went to college, I had a certain allotment of money in my account that I could spend throughout the year. And I'd say in about the first month, I spent 3/4 of that because I was out on my own and I had this seemingly disposable income to run wild with. And then the rest of the year toned down quickly when it come to buying comic books.
Yeah, and don't lie. It's the beer budget gets heavy. When you go to college, like that was that.
I'm not
that
a
was,
drinker though. I'm not a
No,
drinker.
well, for me, it was like I would blow through the money early, like, oh, woohoo, I'm back in college and let's go, and then I would blow through it pretty quick, and then I'm like, okay, crap, I gotta back it up. I was eating cheese and bread sandwiches at times, like it was just funny. I don't know. Being in college is an experience all of its own.
Yeah, I only spent money on the hard drugs.
Oh, shoot. No, that's funny. No, all right. So question 2 is this. Now, do you still read?
Yeah. I don't read as much as I want to. Like I, made sure to sit down and read all 5 issues of Stray Dogs, like last week. I try to read Spider-Man now and then. There are certain titles that at least try to, but there's just so much out there. I don't, like a lot of buyers, I don't read as much as I should.
So it's as much really, because like I read a lot, right? So I read pretty much everything I buy. That is my downtime. My life is really hectic. It's really busy. YouTube has become part of that downtime, and then reading books. Generally at night before I go to bed. That's kind of how I wind myself down. Is reading those books. And you're right. There's so many titles out there today that it's hard to pick and choose really what you want to read. Go ahead.
I should mention that when I had that long sabbatical, when I started getting back into comics, the first thing I did, I bought the collected editions of every single Amazing Spider-Man that I had missed in those 15 years and read that entire run. So I would be caught up on Spider-Man because he was always my go-to.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. And that, I know I did that somewhere. I'm a Superman guy. I love Superman, love Spidey. All the classics, where I grew up, we didn't have a lot of cable television options. So the ones that were always on were the big ones like Spidey and Hulk. And I didn't know, I missed the X-Men generation. Like I'm a little too old for the X-Men and the X-Men TV show. So a lot of collecting, I believe, is nostalgic. Do you think so? Like a lot of that is, what you read when you were a kid.
Nostalgia is king. And people will laugh at this, but I would rather have an entire set of slabbed Captain Carrots than Stray Dogs. Now, financially, I would rather have Stray Dogs. But as far as something that means something to me, like, give me my Captain Carrots, give me the Gru the Wanderer, give me, my Spider-Mans, like, stuff like that. Any Scooby-Doo property, Laugh Olympics, that kind of thing. But yeah, the nostalgia, my entire personal collection is all nostalgia.
That's a lot of what mine is, like Star Wars and G.I. Joe and He-Man, and that stuff is really coming back around now. And that's what I was telling somebody on here. I was like, it was several years ago. I went to a concert, and it was a band I'd watched when I was 18, 19 years old, and they were doing like a reunion tour. And I looked around, and I was like, all these people are my age. They sold this place out. It's nostalgic, right? So it was, reliving your youth in some way or another, as you get older. And I started looking around at my, collection. I kind of got back into it, and I was like, okay, what do I need to buy? This is eventually going to become hot again. So I started buying Star Wars. I started buying G.I. Joe. I started buying He-Man because all that stuff seems to swing back around. Do you find that, and we'll get into kind of what you do here in a minute, but do you find that in what you do when you're out looking for books and when you resell and things like that, that it is 100% nostalgia driven?
Yeah, but it's also hard for me to relate to someone else's nostalgia.
Sure.
Just like what you said with the X-Men. I'm not an X-Men guy. Just like you, I kind of predated that X-Men cartoon run, which a lot of kids grew up on. So I know it exists, but I can't really tune in because it's something you can't manufacture. You know, nostalgia's within you, and everyone has their own different appeal for nostalgia. There's like, I'm a little bit older than my wife, and my wife loves some god awful movies from the 90s, you know, but that's because nostalgia is king. Because we all look at nostalgia with, you know, those rose colored glasses, you know, like beer glasses, pretty much. You know, it like Howard Howard the Duck is the single greatest movie ever made, in my eyes.
Right.
Someone else may feel differently, one or two.
Right. A few
But
people might, but I love it too. I do
right,
too.
right. Uh, so you know, uh, I can't apply nostalgia when it comes to the buying and reselling aspect of it. You know, just kind of like, and again, we'll get into it, but like when I used to do the mystery boxes, I try to do a very wide variety that would appeal to everyone, hopefully, no matter what era you kind of came from.
So, and that'll lead us to question 3 is kind of talking about the mystery boxes because that is how I originally found you. You would do these different runs, like they would be themed a lot of times, and it was always fun. Like it was always a fun box to open because,
Right.
now, like I said, as a reader, for me, it was a good box because there would be a variety of books in there, right? A variety and titles I've never heard of or never read. And it was fun for me to get those and read through them. Then, like if it was Halloween, there'd be candy in there. There was always a slab. You know, sometimes there was a picture. Like I've got a Spider-Man. I think it's the black suit cover, or it's the homage of AF-15.
Oh, okay.
It's a
Yeah.
black and white that I got out of one of your boxes that hangs in my movie theater room right
Yeah.
now. And what got you into, like, what started Grant's Comics? Like, when did you get into that? Kind of tell me the origin and how all that came about.
Sure. Well, I had been buying collections and locally and reselling locally for, you know, a few years. Like I've been an Amazon seller way back, like over a decade prior. I had dabbled with comics a little bit on there, but that's it's kind of a pain dealing with comics on Amazon. It's not really suited for that. But I've been doing a lot of stuff buying and selling locally. I was friends with a lot of dealers in my area. So I'd buy up their inventory or other collections that kind of came up. And then really once COVID hit, it dawned on me very quickly that finances could be an issue. I wasn't sure if they were going to be an issue, but I knew that buying and selling locally might be out. Getting additional inventory for Amazon might be out. But at the same time, if I could just expand what I was already doing onto other platforms, in the worst case scenario, hopefully I wouldn't I wouldn't be in a tough situation during the COVID era. So that's where I started. I already had an Instagram, but I never really branded it or established it. So that's kind of where I came up with the Grants Comics thing. You know, I had the logo designed, and I just started, you know, putting up content on there. And I was following a lot of other people on YouTube doing unboxings and watching comic book unboxings, kind of learning the pros and cons of that whole thing because I already had the inventory. It all existed at my warehouse. It's just a matter of like getting it out there to a new audience. And that's where, you know, eventually the Instagram page led to. And I definitely felt like a lot of the complaints I would see on unboxing videos, I could do those things, like not the complaint things, but I could, you know, fix the things that people were complaining about, especially when people would get issues that they weren't sure what the significance was, which is why I started including those notes on
Mhm.
the individual issues in the mystery box run. And while I may not necessarily have been providing as big of a key as some other mystery boxes, I felt I could definitely do the entertainment value aspect of it. and add a little more personalized touch, because I really do genuinely, it's not a money thing, I genuinely do love interacting with the comic community, and putting smiles on people's faces, that whole kind of thing. It is an enjoyable process for me to watch someone unbox one of mine and actually get a kick out of it. And it pretty much just continued from there. They were just incredibly time consuming, and I assume you're about to hit me with why do they no longer exist?
Well, I was going to ask that question because I know you're not really selling them anymore, on IG, but I think I saw a post that you made one time that maybe you were selling them on Amazon. Do you still sell boxes on Amazon?
Oh my God, the Amazon headache. Okay, I love Amazon, but again, it's not necessarily for comic. For anyone that's never sold on Amazon, it is a tremendous platform, just not for comics. So basically, Amazon contacted me about entering their subscription fulfillment program as far as mystery boxes. They have all types of mystery boxes on there. So I accepted it. I sent in the application after they, contacted me initially, went through that entire process. I was already aware that DC Warner Brothers has what is considered to be a block on reselling their items that are not in what's considered to be pristine, brand new condition. So what happened was that in the marketing of this mystery box, my box got, I don't even know what wording they would use. My box got limited, or, canceled is not even the right word, because it still existed, just no one could find it because of the DC Warner Brothers aspect of selling stuff that was not considered to be new. It wasn't an issue with Marvel or Dynamite or anything like that. If you've ever sold trade paperbacks on Amazon, you will see when you sign in, you can sell Marvel trade paperbacks in any condition, but you cannot sell DC in any condition except for new, unless like you have written approval and all this other kind of paperwork that shows you're an authorized dealer for DC.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
As far as let's make this question forward, and let's talk a little bit about Amazon, because you're probably the first person I've had on here that has extensive background in selling on Amazon. Like, kind of how did that happen, and what do you sell on Amazon? You said you had a warehouse, you were keeping your comic books there, so it was easy. It was kind of a no-brainer for you to go over and pick those up. Like, what kind of stuff do you sell on Amazon?
Well, the warehouse is literally just comics. There are two ways to sell on Amazon. There's one, fulfillment by Amazon, where you actually ship them the items, and then they handle all the individual shipping, or you can ship them yourself. A lot of people are comfortable with shipping each individual item themselves because there's this concern about shipping large amounts of inventory to an Amazon warehouse, and I understand that concern. But once you pack up 300 individual items, or you can send one box to Amazon and have them ship out those 300 individual items, you learn the benefits real quickly. But yeah, good Lord, I feel like I'm a hustler going back to early days of the internet. Like, first, dabbling in eBay in probably 1999 or so. For as far as what I sell on Amazon, it's mostly out of print stuff, whether it's books or DVDs. That's the biggest stuff I sell, mainly because, okay, so maybe you can make a $50 profit on this microwave. You have to deal with shipping the microwave. If you sell books and DVDs, you can ship a lot in the same box that you would ship that microwave in. So what if that, microwave gets damaged along this way, or, so I'm big on selling things that are kind of compact, I would say. I used to do a ton of calendars. In fact, calendars for years was my number one seller by far on Amazon. People don't buy as many calendars in 2021, but there's still a market for it. It's just not as profitable. And I feel kind of bad because I feel like I'm talking about the money aspect of it a lot, and that's not really like, it's my full-time job. So there's a fine balance between coming off as someone who's all about the money is coming off as someone who's just trying to make a living. You
Well,
know?
no, and I get that, but at the same time, though, a lot of people who watch YouTube videos or who are in the comic book game, a lot of us resell, and we fund the hobby. And I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with the money aspect of it. Now, there are people who are pure collectors that don't believe in reselling anything, and that's okay.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a great way to be. I think somebody like me, I am a reader who will resell to help fund the hobby because once I read something, I've read it. I'm good. I usually there are certain things that I keep that I really love. Like if right now, I'll say for example, the Chip Zdarsky Daredevil run.
Mm-hmm.
I have collected that whole run and I love it. I think it's one of the most underrated runs out there right now. I won't sell that because I might actually go back and reread it. That's how much I like it. But if it's something that I've read and I'm like, yeah, that's okay, I'll resell it. And I don't think the money aspect of it is a bad way to look at it. It's actually, I'm kind of interested in it because, you hear, look, e-commerce is eventually, and COVID really showed us this, is that you do not have to have a physical location to necessarily do business. E-commerce is the future. Yeah. And if it's here, it's the future, but it's here and it will become more so as we go. And I'm interested in the Amazon aspect of it because, like, I've had a bunch of people reach out to me, and maybe you've heard of this, where you can essentially, like, buy a store, and then somebody actually fulfills the items. Like, there's items. You basically just invest the money, and then you have a store, and then things start selling. Have you ever heard of anybody doing something like that?
Oh, you mean like an already existing e-commerce store?
Yeah, like they'll buy an existing store. Like I have an eBay store that has, 1,500 feedback, whatever.
Yeah.
At some point, when you get to a certain point, that has value, and you can actually sell the store because you become an established store on eBay. So somebody will buy your store, but then there are companies out there who actually pick the items that go in your store. You don't have to do anything. You literally fund it. That's all you do, and then you get a return from that.
Yeah, I've received a couple of emails from people that were interested in buying my Amazon account in the past. And I've toyed with it, but at the same time, like, I haven't been offered the amount of money that would make up for not having the store. But at the same time, I could see me selling at some point. I think I'm probably around 9,000 on the feedback on Amazon. So and having, been there for over a decade plus, there is value in owning that. And, as e-commerce continues to change and evolve, if I ever decide to do less and less with the Amazon aspect of it, I could absolutely see me selling it.
Yeah, no, and I just find that interesting. How's it changed, since you've done it so long? Like I said, you were kind of one of the early entries. Like, how's it changed eBay and Amazon as far as the resale aspect of it?
How has it changed? PayPal has become less of a factor, which is a good thing.
Right.
I think a lot of people. See, it's so hard for me to say because I'm so grandfathered in a lot of areas of Amazon. Because I think if you set up an account today on Amazon, you're not going to have immediate clearance to being able to sell like DVDs and stuff like that. And I think there's more of an approval process that you have to go through. So it's hard for me to say what has really changed in that aspect. I get paid from Amazon every 2 weeks, but not much has changed because I just pack up the inventory and send it to them. I guess, obviously, since DVDs are becoming a dying format, more DVDs become out of print, which makes them more valuable. You would be astounded at some of the DVDs that you wouldn't have thought twice about going for an obscene amount of money on Amazon. At the same time, you see VHSs get graded now by companies.
Right.
They go for an insane amount of money. Don't sell those on Amazon because it will not work out well for you. But if anything has changed, I mean, Amazon put such a blow to eBay because it was so much easier just to buy off of Amazon than eBay. And now, and I'm sure we'll get into this too, companies like Whatnot, and I'm not just saying Whatnot, but companies like Whatnot are going to put the death knell to eBay if this thing continues at this pace.
Well, and that was actually question 5 was the whatnot question, because I know, you haven't been selling the mystery boxes. Well, and let me ask this real quick before we go on to question 5. Will you ever go back to selling mystery boxes?
So anyone can always contact me on the Instagram, and I'll do a custom mystery box. I'll usually ask them what's their 3 or 4 favorite characters, kind of what budget are you looking to spend, and I'll build it, assuming I have inventory, which usually is not an issue. I'll build it out of their request. So people can always hit me up for them. As far as a mass-produced mystery box, you never say never because things change. My thing is I don't ever want to do a half A one. I want to make it deserving of what I had put out in the past, where people are like genuinely enjoy opening it. And those things are just so blasted time consuming. It's worth it in the end, but you do have to pick and choose between, okay, how are you spending today's 12-hour workday? Are you putting together these mystery boxes here, or are you literally bagging and boarding inventory for Whatnot and the same amount can be sold in a couple of hours? You have to, delegate your time smartly. And, I do hate that I had to put mystery boxes on the back burner to some extent, but, you have to make the choice in any kind of business decision you make in life.
Sure, absolutely. So let's talk about Whatnot. One of the things really that came out of COVID, right? If you can say anything good came out of COVID was, and I think these avenues were there before, of being able to sell books online, but I've seen it a lot more. Like I think a lot more people have went to selling books on IG, doing YouTube auctions. And then you had Whatnot, who primarily started out as a Funko Pop resource, has moved over into the comic industry. So what do you, and you kind of, I guess, referred to it here as far as like if things keep going the way they're going, Whatnot is going to be it. That version of how people can sell is probably the future. So talk to me a little bit about Whatnot, kind of how that works and what you've experienced thus far with them.
So I'm hesitant initially when any new platform like that starts up. I'm very much, okay, I've seen Amazon for years. You got to be pretty darn impressive to even like compete in that stuff. So I'm very, I didn't buy it at first. I had heard good things about it. So I decided, well, I'll sign up and just take a look and just watch a few auctions. And I was blown away by everything, like literally everything. The community, from both a seller and a buyer's perspective. Because I would watch auctions where I'd be like, my God, I cannot believe someone just paid this amount of money for that. And then I would watch auctions where I'm like, oh my God, this seller just got that book is like $100 book they just picked up for $4. Like, so it works both ways. It's just timing. I think that kind of unknown factor, it can be very appealing to both a seller and a buyer. So once I really started watching a few auctions, and I studied it for a week or two, and I was like, well, I'm applying because, like I don't necessarily want to be in front of the camera and constantly talking for 2 hours because I don't want to sound like, I don't want to sound like a shop at home employee. Shop at home. What were they called? Shop at home.
Home Shopping Network.
Yeah, Home Shopping Network. One of those. I don't want to sound like one of those people, but at the same time, it was too good not to try and, dip your toe into that water. Now, I will say at the same time, when you hear about something that's too good to be true, it's usually not. Whatnot is too good to be true. However, it's real, but I don't think it can last in its current state. And when I say that, I mean, once it really starts becoming a more widely known option and starts cutting into like eBay and other areas, someone has to buy that company. Now, maybe Whatnot continues on their own and does their own thing and becomes the number one collectible selling marketplace in the world. But someone is going to try and buy that company because
I think so too.
It's too good.
No, I think eBay or somebody like that will eventually. It will become too much competition.
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube. Not that YouTube's making enough revenue, and it hasn't killed off live comic book auction sales on YouTube, but it's clearly put a dent in them. And the same thing with Instagram. Not that Instagram was making any money off of Instagram live sales, but I mean, you can see the similarities in the two platforms, and that's going to be on someone's radar with a lot of money at some point.
No, I agree. And because I think what makes the Whatnot sales, like you said, you have a chance to get some really good books at a decent price. There are also books will go for I think it's the community aspect of it. I think that's what with COVID, we weren't able to get out, right? And older folks like me, well, I say older like us, we're not that old, but I still feel like I'm 16, really. I mean, I'm a 40.
I remind my wife of that every day.
Yeah. I'm a 46-year-old in a 16-year-old's body, right. But I think what YouTube has been for me, and I never dreamed this, and I say this a lot, I own a business, I own multiple businesses, and my life's very hectic, and I don't have a lot of friends. My best friend that's been my friend since I was this big, it still is. We still go to the Kentucky football games together. But my family, it's basically I work and then I hang out with my family. And what YouTube did for me was it brought me into this community of people. Yeah. And I've made a bunch of friends. I've got to meet people like you in a different part of the country, and develop these relationships or, kind of friendships online, which is weird. And I think, or it was to me anyway. And so I think that aspect of what Whatnot's doing with those auctions, what IG you can do on there, I think that's the part that people really, it's the human interaction if you can't do it in your day-to-day life online. And I think and I think you're going to see that play a more role as we go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had that, what you said about YouTube can be directly applied, I think, to the Instagram comic community. Because even before the YouTube community, I really felt it with the Instagram. And I'm not trying to bury any other social media platform, but the amount of negativity on Instagram is minuscule compared to any other platform.
Yes. No, I noticed that too, because I'm on all of them. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on, IG. I didn't really know how to use IG. It was just funny. My daughter had to teach me how to really use Instagram. Once I started the YouTube channel, I didn't even really know how to post. But you're right. That is one great, and that's the thing. I've said this 1,000 times. If anybody's watched this, the comic community in general is very positive.
Yeah.
You'll have some negativity here and there, but for the most part, and IG is the most positive of all the media platforms, I think anyway, when it comes to that. And it is, I didn't realize it, that there's a massive IG community with comic books and collectibles.
Oh, yeah. I never dreamed that it would be so much. And I guess I should mention, we both brought up the negativity aspect of it. Everyone, as a piece of advice, use the block function. Use the mute function. Your life will be happier. I can't remember. I feel like I have got about 2,000 people blocked on Twitter. My son, I'm an amateur compared to my son. I think he's about 6,000 blocked on Twitter.
Wow.
We have no time, and it's not like, it's just negativity. Like if I'm scrolling through, I'm a football guy. So if I'm scrolling through Ian Rappaport's news headlines, and I come across people that are commenting just about like his wife leaving him, like, oh, you're getting blocked because nothing you say will ever be anything I want to read if you're taking his news report and commenting on a negative aspect of his personal life that has nothing to do with what's even being talked about. You are a horrible human being, and you do not deserve to have your opinion read.
I couldn't agree more. And, I almost stay off Twitter anymore. Like I changed. Like I quit following certain things, and then I just don't read the comments. Like if I get in, it's a bunch of negativity. I'm just done with that. I am a generally pretty positive person.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just don't have time in my life for that kind of negativity. And there's enough wrong in the world and in your day to day life that why expose yourself to that?
I hear a lot of people talk about how bad like Twitter is. My Twitter is great. I have no issues because I've got so many people blocked. Like I don't see, like I will hear people say about how bad the negativity and stuff is. And I mean, I do see it on Facebook because like you can't block everyone that you're not friends with, the comments or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, like I actually enjoy Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that because I've modified my own to be enjoyable.
Well, no, and I think that's great advice, really. I'm probably going to take that up on Twitter because I'm a sports guy too. And, and that's something that we're getting ready to talk about. But I'm a sports guy too. And it is, you just read these comments like in Kentucky, there's a show called Kentucky Sports Radio. The guy, Matt Jones, this is a very, very conservative state. And Matt Jones is the anchor or whatever, the guy that leads that show, and he's very liberal. And he will make a post about a Kentucky thing, and then people just start lighting him up in the comments about being liberal. Who cares? It's a sport. Right. It's sport. I don't know. Like I said, I could get off on a total other tangent.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I don't want you to have to stick with your regular format. We can go off on a tangent. It's all good, man.
No, like, I mean, I could 100%. That drives me nuts. Like, look, I follow him because I'm interested in Kentucky sports. I don't agree with his political views. Some of them I do. Some of them I don't. But that's not why I consume his information. I consume it for the sports aspect of it. Right. And if I have political interests, like I'm interested in what's going on in our country, and I have opinions on those things, and I'll follow those people. But you're right. Those are a lot of the places where, I don't know, I talk to my kids about this a lot, is the blocking aspect of it. Don't feed into the hate. People are going to be jealous and they're going to hate and they're going to do all those things. Don't feed into that. Just live your life. Likes don't mean love. Understand that.
I like my likes. I don't know.
Well, no, I like my likes too, but at the end of the day, it's not going to drive my life.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I guess lucky for me, I don't care about politics in the least. So it's easy to block both. If a celebrity uses their platform and that all they talk about is politics, even if it's a celebrity I like, I'm not following you because I'm here to be entertained,
Sure. No, I mean, I think that makes total sense. So let's get into question 6. Let's get into the entertainment aspect of this because one thing, I always thought it was funny because I always liked you, right? I was like, I like Grant. He's a good dude. I dig his vibe. I'm all about this guy. I love his mystery boxes. And then I found out that you're actually like the technical guy for Duke, who I despise. And, people that watch me, they know I hate Louisville because Louisville's our in-state rival. But really, really close to that's Duke. Now, in getting to know you a little better, you're actually a Carolina fan. So we share that hatred for Duke, and that's fine. But I don't like Carolina either. So we're always going to have. I'm kidding. So we're always going to have that that little bit of rivalry there. But talk to me about your day job as far as what you do for the University of Duke. I find this really interesting.
Sure. Okay. Well, first off, let's set one thing straight. There are four great programs in college basketball. It's Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, and Kansas. I mean, I think we both agree on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we agree on that. There's mutual respect there. I should say I am a casual college sports fan. Like now, when I was growing up in Chapel Hill for my high school years, it was a different story then because I bled UNC and despised Duke with every fiber of my being. I assure you, I was cheering for Kentucky in that 1992 game. I was not cheering for Duke.
I still have my I Hate Leitner shirt.
I do not have one. I should, but
we had a shirt made that says I still hate Leitner. And people who don't know the 92 team, we had just come off probation, and there was a bunch of white Kentucky hillbillies. And when I'm saying hillbillies, these boys were from, well, one grew up 20 minutes from me. The other grew up about an hour from me. These were country boys who dreamed their entire life of playing Kentucky basketball. And we were coming off probation. We had a bunch of sanctions. And we had these four white boys and Jamal Mashburn,
Yeah,
who was a beast, an absolute beast, and went down as one of the greatest. And every March Madness, you'll see the shot. Leitner turning around hitting that shot.
So last night, you know what I watched in preparation for today?
What?
That.
Did you? Oh, how dare you?
Here's the thing, though. People forget, because the only thing people in this era ever see is the shot. The shot before the shot is unbelievable.
Yeah, Sean Woods.
I watched the game live, and I will remember that Saturday. I will never forget that Saturday night, watching that game live. That game is incredible, and it's really a shame that only thing you see in this era is Leitner's shot, because it's a fantastic game.
It's one of the best played college basketball games, and legit. And I know I'm a Kentucky fan, but legit, right. If you're a sports fan, go back and watch that game. Like, I can watch the game up until the Leitner shot, then I have to turn it off because it absolutely destroyed me when that happened. I mean, because I was 17, something like that at the time, and that was diehard. Like, when you're in Kentucky, when you're born, you come out and they put a Big Blue Nation onesie on you. That is just the deal. I did it with my kids. That is just the deal, and it's a way of life. Like, when I was growing up, my grandmother was a diehard Kentucky fan, right? And we didn't have all the cable channels at the time, so we listened to it on the radio. Me and my dad and my uncle, who I talk a lot about, that got me into collecting. We went to my grandma's. She cooked dinner, and we listened to the Cats, and then listened to Kaywood. When TV came along, we went to her house, and we watched every game at her house, every game. And she would always cook dinner. So, like in Kentucky, it is like it's a religion. Like, you are born to love Kentucky basketball. And when that particular team was, like I said, it was a bunch of white boys from the hills of eastern Kentucky, where I'm from, and Mashburn, and then you had Woods too, who made that shot that you're talking about. Yeah. And that team meant so much to us because we knew them. Like, I knew those guys. I mean, I grew up, I chewed the same dirt as those guys. Mm-hmm. And it was just, we were so wrapped up in that team. But that is one of the best played college basketball games that you will ever watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I got deviated from your original question.
Oh, no, that's fine. I love talking about Kentucky basketball. Like, college sports for us, you're in Carolina, right? So you have some professional teams. You got the Panthers. Who else is down there? Well,
I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes for the NHL.
NHL.
Listen, this is college sports country. I've lived all over the country and kind of been lucky enough to see how sports is different in different aspects of the country, which is why I'm such a diehard Green Bay Packers fan. And that's taking nothing away from where I live and the fan base for Carolina and Duke. A big part of it with me personally is I connect to a player, and it's very hard to connect to a player for any length of time in college. And because, they're there, and then 2 years, 3 years later, they're gone, and it's a whole new system. So I don't really I feel like I never get time to become invested, then they're gone. It was a little bit different in high school when I'm literally watching every single UNC game and stuff like that during the Eric Montross or Jerry Stackhouse run or stuff like that.
Sure.
But anyway, Carolina fan, born and bred. So I don't want to over publicize my involvement with Duke. Essentially, I am a freelancer for different events on the ACC network. Duke is the primary school, and Duke is the school I started with. And then I'll do some stuff for Wake Forest or other just oddball, smaller colleges in the area. And for that, I run camera or on larger games. Like, if there's a men's basketball game inside Cameron Indoor, I'm not on camera. I'm going to be running cable and gripping. Now I'm on the court, but I'm not holding a camera.
Yeah.
And for the big games inside Cameron, a lot of people may not know this. For the big games, like if it's Duke, Carolina, all the local freelance crew aren't even hired. ESPN flies in their own crew, which is a completely different set of people for the biggest of games. So we don't even get to do the, we'll do Duke, Florida State, but we're not doing Duke, Carolina. So stuff like that. But yeah, I went to college for video production, basically, and have always dabbled in video production over the years. I did it for 20 plus years, so I guess I dabbled a little bit. But yeah.
Well, no, but I think that's cool, though. I mean, look, I talk about Duke, give it a hard time. It's a sports rivalry. It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to trash each other. Like, we even have a shirt that says Duke with the D and the E crossed out with the UK in the middle. It's supposed to be fun. But I went in Cameron one time.
Have you?
Yeah, I went in there once. I didn't watch a game. I just happened to be there, and I was able to go into Cameron. It's really small. Like, I was shocked at how small it was. And because Rupp Arena is massive. It's huge. Like, it's like going to church to go to Rupp Arena. You know what I'm saying? It's an experience. But Cameron has to be the same way because it is so small. And you get the Cameron crazies going, and it has to be fun, man. I don't care what you do. You're a sports fan. It has to be fun.
Oh, it is the most. I've been at some incredible sporting events. I've been to. Okay, see, this always feels like I'm bragging or something like that.
Brag. I think this is awesome.
I've been to 10 WrestleManias. I've been to Lambeau Field multiple times. There is no environment like Cameron Indoor when those crazies are on. I was at, what was it? COVID has completely thrown out my time frame, but the NBA All-Star Weekend on Zion's rookie year, when Zion was not elected to the All-Star game because of the injury, he showed up at Cameron in the second half. We were given, like, on headset, we were given like a 2-minute heads up to be prepared, to be looking for Zion because he was about to come through and we need to get the shot and that kind of thing. My ears hurt for 2 days afterwards. And I've never been at a sporting event where my ears legitimately hurt for 2 days afterwards. It was an unbelievable roar, which was even more disappointing when I went home and watched the broadcast version that did not, I feel, accurately represent the energy in that building.
Do you, Coach K, this is his last year. And will you get to work some of those games, you think, and be part of that?
So I've been, since COVID and with the general collectible boom and, as it is, I've become a little bit more selective about dates I take. There's also been some turnover as far as management and that. And as a freelance crew in general, we're not even sure exactly how we'll be assigned going forward, since we're not sure who's taking over and that kind of stuff without getting into a lot of detail on that. So I will, you don't want to be that guy who's only available for men's basketball, but at the same time, it's really hard not to be that guy,
right?
Because I'm so free. I'm like legitimately so busy. I enjoy working like Duke women's volleyball in Cameron. It's still a cool environment. You're still in Cameron. I'm still running camera. It's cool. But at the same time, like, or I could be running a whatnot stream for 2 hours at home and then have this additional time with my family and not away. So, you kind of have to pick and choose. I feel bad being that guy that when they send me the list of events, I'm just going to click yes on men's basketball only. But that could happen.
Yeah, well, no. Does it give you a different, like when you're running a camera? I've always wondered this, and since I've got you here, I'm going to ask. When you're running a camera and you're doing it from that perspective, do you watch the game differently? Or because because I'm watching it on TV. I'm watching it through the eyes of the cameraman. If I'm in Rupp, I'm watching the whole game. I'm watching it, but I would imagine if you're on the camera and you're filming, that there's a completely different way that you're viewing the game.
So it actually depends on which camera you're on too. Because if you're on the wide cam, like you're just kind of moving back and forth, you have a better feel for the overall scope of the game. But if you're on like the court, should say I did get to actually shoot on the court on Cameron for two notable things. Well, I did get to shoot a Duke UNC game in Cameron for women's basketball, which was cool. I mean, you say what you will, but that was still freaking cool. And I got to do the Countdown to Craziness, which was Zion. I got to shoot Zion's debut in Cameron Indoor.
Awesome.
Which like they do the little the big introductions and then the pickup game Duke versus Duke. So I did get to shoot that. So that's way up there on my like coolest things I got to do. But if you're on the court shooting and you're just kind of like you're just following the ball itself almost the entire time, you have less of a feel of the game. Like I have no clue what the score is of the game if I'm shooting like on the court, following the ball player, that kind of thing. Like when you go to commercial and you look up the score and you're like, someone's up by 10. I had no idea. Like, so it kind of just depends on what camera you're on.
That's cool. No, that's interesting. I always wondered that because those guys, I think that would be an interesting job, you get to travel, you get to see some really cool sporting events if you're a sports fan, and then I also think it would be neat, like back in the, I guess the production room where they're going, like, do they do that? Like camera one here, camera two, zoom in here, does that go on?
Yeah. So, I mean, I worked in TV for years, even prior to doing my TV experience and my other video production experience is actually what got me the gig at Duke through a friend of a friend kind of thing. But yes, I have somewhere on VHSs, I have some all-time. So what I would do when I worked in TV, they would always record the director's track of a broadcast in case anything happened and they needed to refer to the director's track after the fact to possibly point out blame or explain something or whatever. And especially on nights where maybe there was something like a big outbreak of tornadoes in the area or something like that. Or a Friday night football broadcast on like local broadcast television. I love the director's cut of that because the amount of screaming endlessly for a half hour to an hour was priceless, and I ate it up. I live for live television production. It is the best, and you can never take that stuff personal if you're the one getting screamed at, you can never take it personal because everyone's trying to achieve the same thing. They just want the best product possible to be broadcast. And sometimes you have to be a little enthusiastic in your delivery to get to that point. So yes, you're always on heads, and it's stand by one, cut one, or take one, stand by two, take two, and just various directions like coming back from break, want shot get a crowd shot, and of course, it depends on your camera assignment too. Like maybe you're following the ball. So after every shot that goes in, you're following what they call the hero. So you follow whoever made the shot, stuff like, yeah, but it's constant chatter and direction. It's the best. Like if you've never, for anyone, I don't know if there's any good ones on YouTube or not, but if there are any director's tracks of broadcast, sit through them because it is, if you've never heard them before, it is unbelievable how anything ever gets on the air because there's so many things being said. So many different people. And the fact that they're able to pull it off is unbelievable.
That's awesome. I love it. No, I just that's always interested me. Obviously, like I said, I'm a sports fan, more from the sports stand, that sports
Yeah.
aspect of it. So, no, that's cool. All right, so let's jump into question 7. We'll kind of bring it back to the comic books here, and
My real goal here is to see if I can have the longest 10 questions ever by rambling on forever.
it's okay. I've enjoyed every second of this. Like it's been great. All right, so question 7, and it was we've talked a little bit about it about whatnot and the prices exploding. It's obviously been a pretty crazy time for the past couple of years with the comic book industry and the prices that we're seeing. What are your thoughts on can it maintain this level? And if it does come back, what books do you see that values will drop on and what books will maintain and go forward?
Okay. So, can it maintain the level? No. But having said that, it will never return to what it was. Like, at no point in the rest of my life am I going to pick up a Hulk 181 for $500.
Right.
So like, what's your level? I think a lot of people that say, well, there's going to be a crash. There's going to be a crash. Well, yeah, there might be a crash, but it ain't going to go back to 2018. Like it's impossible. I'm sorry. What was the second?
No, it's like, what do you think? What books do you think will come back to Earth? Right. Like here's the thing that I see, and I'll tell you what I see, and then you can kind of play off this.
Yeah.
I'll use Nottingham as an example. Nottingham is a book, fairly low print run, but when it came out, it got incredibly hot. 5-book run. Mm-hmm. I've seen prices on that, that first number 1 cover A for $100. Okay. And I don't think books like that, I don't think the new books will maintain. I think you'll see those kind of come back to earth, the FOMO. People have less money as things get back to normal. I think those go away. I think the blue chip books like the Hulk 181, I think they've come up. They'll probably come back some, but they're still going to appreciate over time.
Yeah, like Kang is at a peak right now. It will continue to climb for a little bit. But 5 years from now, Kang will... Those random issues of Avengers that Kang is on the cover of, those won't be ever $1 books again. But will you be able to get those Kang 80s Avengers issues for $25? Yeah, you'll be able to get those for $25 5 years from now. There are some that are going to be immune. I thought for years, actually, Ultimate Fallout 4 was the Hulk 181 of this generation. Kamala Khan, since there's multiple kind of first appearances, that's kind of a tough one. I definitely think her first issue of her regular running series will always be a good one to have, because I think Miles and Kamala Khan are characters going forward for the next decade, will be front and center. Shuri, possibly as well. Black Panther from Black Panther. I think those books are kind of safe. But you get characters like Young Loki, maybe. Young Loki, that book could be something that's just, a $50 book 5 years from now.
Yeah, no, I agree. So question 8 is, as a person who is a reseller, who sells books on whatnot and places like that, has this bump, like, how are you managing your inventory from the standpoint of, do you have to look at it differently right now? And are you preparing for a dip if the dip comes? And like, how are you managing what you do?
Well, I was buying before the boom, so I don't really think about the dip because there still be, but I'm conscious never to overpay for anything. I will buy in bulk to get the best deal humanly possible. I'll send off stuff that maybe I shouldn't be sending off to get slabbed, but because, if you send off enough issues at $25 a piece or whatever, at worst it's a break-even proposition. Anything I purchase, like yesterday I got in a few hundred comics, my immediate goal is just to break even as fast as humanly possible, and then anything else is a bonus. But you got to break even first and foremost. And I can usually do that in a pretty short amount of time. So I'm not worried about, well, part of right now, it's actually like I can't get as much inventory from dealers as I was getting pre-boom. It is a little harder to get inventory now, but I mean, honestly, if you're a comic book website on the internet, I've been to your page and I've looked. So there will always be places to source inventory from. It's just a matter of, finding the absolute best deal, maybe sending a few DMs saying, hey, see, you got this. You got this for this price, but what if I bought all 10,000 issues that you have? Like what kind of deal are we working? What kind of money are we looking at then? And that's, usually you'll come better off doing that if you can't afford to do so. So I never put like that much risk into my purchase. Like I'm not going to go out there and buy an Amazing Spider-Man #9 first appearance of Electro. I'm not, because while it is going to be profitable in the next year, it's still a giant amount of money into one book. Or I could take that exact same amount of money and buy these few hundred, if not few thousand books. And sometimes, like I bought a collection probably 6 months ago from someone that was actually fairly local to me. It was a horrible situation as far as the state of the house and the smell of the house and the conditions of the house. But I escaped with that collection and at an insanely cheap price. And as I started going through it, I was like, oh, well, there's that blue Captain Marvel first appearance, and there's the first appearance of Usagi Yojimbo, which was basically $1 book in their eyes. So I found my biggest success has come in buying large collections, and then just taking the time to go through them, and you'll be astounded. Again, I don't ever want to come off like bragging, but I don't think I have it sitting right here by me. But yesterday I got a Ghost Rider #1 for a criminal, and I do mean criminal price. Now, that's not me taking. This was actually from a dealer. This was, and it is a restored copy. It's not slab, but it's a restored copy because it's been restapled. But it's probably like a 7.0 restored Ghost Rider #1 that I paid single digits for.
Oh, wow.
So, wow. I mean, that, it's just about, when you buy as much as I do in the quantities that I do, you don't really get hung up on the, oh my God, what if there is a dip? Because, you've kind of already broken even. So anything else is a bonus, even if it is a dip.
So you're kind of hedging, really. I mean, as far as, in the mass amount that you buy, you almost hedge yourself out to where, the likelihood of you losing money is less and less. I think that's wise. What's your, you talk about buying these collections. Like, how do you go about finding these? Do you put ads out on Craigslist, or you're searching online? Like, how do you go about, or people seek you out to sell the collection to?
So I don't do Craigslist. There's actually one guy in my state that does Craigslist so hard, and I am kind of friends with him, and I feel like I'd be stepping on his territory if I put out ads on Craigslist as well. So it's silly in this community, but I do feel like, well, I should be respectful to him because I'm cool with him, and I bought large inventory from him before myself. Generally what happens is I've been friends with so many dealers in my area for so long that they'll usually just contact me. Once in a while, maybe I'll hit them up, or if I just stop in the store, it's like, hey, you got anything for me? But yeah, once in a while, I'll see a Facebook ad that maybe I'll hit someone up on, and it's worked out. But even those are few and far between. Most of it comes from the largest of collections, comes from word of mouth from a dealer. Or actually, that Usagi Yojimbo one I was just talking about, that one came because I was buying a massive DVD bulk purchase for Amazon, and I was asking a person there about comics, and then they put me in contact with. So it's all about just word of mouth, making contacts. I'm going to buy DVDs today. I'm not worried about comics, but why not ask while you're there? And as it turns out, she knew someone that was sitting on about 100 long boxes.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Well, I know like where we're at, it's very rural, and like where I'm sitting right now, the closest comic book shop's an hour from me.
Sure.
And so we have to be kind of creative, right? And we have to go to antique stores and flea markets and things like that. Do you ever hit places like that up?
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, kind of sleep on flea markets and antique stores and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that you can come across that's worth your time. With COVID, I don't do it as much as I did at one point. Like pre-COVID, not even necessarily for comics, but for either comics, DVDs, whatever it was, I was on the road I'd say at least 4 days a week buying inventory from somewhere in my state. Since COVID, I've kind of chilled on that a lot, and I've kind of modified a lot of my buying purchases to either more local or have it shipped to my house, which I'm a big fan of deliveries. So did that answer the question?
No, absolutely. No, yeah, that absolutely answered the question. That's, I just find it interesting. Like my uncle was probably a lot like you in his day. He went to flea markets and sold. That's what he did. He'd go to shows, conventions, whatever, and that's how he would sell. But he would go out. Look, dude, I've traveled with that cat all over the place, digging through old houses and barns and stuff, finding the craziest stuff that he would resell. I mean, I tell the story, and it's the 100% the truth. I've been with him when he purchased 4 AF-15s. 4. And now you can't do that now. It's probably there's maybe a unicorn here and there, but back then it wasn't like it is now. I was a kid, and I would be with him, and I know of, and the copy of the AF-15 that I have came from him, and it's just crazy. So I find it interesting, like what you do, like I grew up with you. It was just my uncle. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I find that part interesting. All right. So question 9 is this, and we'll kind of get you finished up here on 10 questions. Look, Rob Fatstacks, I can't let you beat his time. He went, he's notoriously likes to talk, but you're going to run it close. No.
Okay.
All right, no.
Okay.
No. Question 9 is, do you have like other hobbies other than, because it sounds like to me that, you enjoy comics and it's probably fun, but, a lot of it's resale for you. And you enjoy the hobby. But like I see that Rogers jersey back there. Do you collect any sports memorabilia? Like, do you have any other hobbies outside of, the comic books or collectibles and that kind of thing?
Sure. Well, I think most people know that I guess I would classify as a huge pro wrestling fan, but I worked in wrestling for so freaking long that I don't know if that makes me a fan or not, or I don't know. But yeah. Pro wrestling and obviously sports, specifically NFL football. My kid, when me and my wife first started dating, she was like, "You have got to tone down on the football talk. Like, she just can't handle it." And now that my kid is 15, about to turn 16, he never stops talking about it. So it's like, even though I had to tune it down a little bit for her sanity all those years ago, he has now picked it up and like tenfold what I ever was as far as the football passion. But yeah, pro football, pro wrestling, comics, obviously. Now, even if I wasn't reselling comics, I do want to make it clear, I would still have my personal collection. I would still be following the industry. I'd still be buying stuff now and then. It's certainly not just relegated to the reseller status. But yeah, I'm so big. Like I do have like kind of 10-hour work days some days. I have a buddy that has I guess you consider it be a real job. I always do real job in quotation marks. And I'm always like, why don't you do stuff like what I'm doing? You're capable of it. And he was like, I don't want to work that hard.
Right. No, be self-employed if you want to find out how hard to work, how hard work is. Yeah. No, I tell people that all the time. All right, question 10 goes back to something you just talked about because I too am a wrestling fan, okay?
Okay, okay. I
And
didn't know if you were getting into that today or not.
no, absolutely, we're getting into that
Okay.
because no, and that's question 10. I was joking about, I got to cut you off because this could get into a long talk here,
Okay.
but I wanted to save it to the end because, like, growing up, and I talked about not having a ton of channels. One of those was TBS. So we had NWA.
Okay.
That was the wrestling. So the Road Warriors are my favorite of all time. I love the Road Warriors. I love the Four Horsemen. I love, Ric Flair, those guys. And I know that you've worked a ton of WrestleMania. As you mentioned it earlier. How many did you say? 10?
I did not work Manias. I've done 10 Manias, but I did those as a fan. I did not actually work Manias.
So you went to WrestleMania 10 different times.
Yes. So okay. So I am both a fan and I don't know. It was kind of a job. So basically, I mainly worked on the independent level. Now, if you watch like the Undertaker Last Ride documentary, you would have seen my name pop up on that for some footage, or this new the A&E Most Wanted Treasures. My name was in the credits for one of those. But for the most part, I have done minimal work for the WWE. Most of my stuff is on the independent level, as far as shooting, editing, helping book when people didn't mind me overstepping my bounds. Probably the biggest stuff I would say I did outside the WWE credits was the first TNA house show at ECW Arena. I shot that, which was an experience. So traditionally in wrestling, I would shoot from the apron. Found out real quick I was not shooting from the apron. Well, one match in, I'm not shooting from the apron on ECW Arena because these fans are about to kill me for being in the way.
Right.
But yeah, but 10 Manias as a fan.
So, Tim, I thought you had worked the Mania. So as a fan, no, that's okay. But I have to think though on the independent side because I love that A&E's Most Wanted Treasures like that when they were doing the biography every week and then that would come after. Like my wife would get so mad because I was like, oh God, I got to watch this, But like the guy was talking about Matt Jones that runs Kentucky Sports Radio just recently purchased OVW. Which is Al Snow is there. That's who runs that. And the camera work and stuff, like who are the biggest stars that you've seen on the independent circuit that you've had a chance to shoot?
Oh, geez. I mean, Dusty?
Dusty.
I mean, I don't like, honestly, I've come across, like I've met Flair, but I haven't shot a Flair match. I mean, I've done the Hardys multiple times. Yeah, like, like as a fan, I've met Austin and Rock, but I haven't shot them. But yeah, I've shot Dusty. Bobby Eaton. I mean, there's a lot of guys at WWE now that I've shot. I'm not big on the name dropping thing, but if, I've done, like, if you watch NXT now, like I've shot probably more Cameron Grimes matches than anyone prior to him going to WWE. And Cedric Alexander, the Revival, who are in AEW now, back when Dax was on the independent level here in North Carolina. That's probably of the modern guys, that would be the group. We mentioned the Road Warriors. I'm trying to think. Like, I've definitely ran into them before, but I don't think I've shot them. It's hard. Like, stuff blurs together. It's weird. So, like, when I was a kid, you get these memories ingrained into your mind. Like, what's the date of WrestleMania 4? Well, obviously, it's March 27, 1988. But if someone asked me, hey, about this match you shot in 2014, not a clue. It's just such a blur. again, nostalgia's king, because you know these memories that you get as a child just stick with you forever. But stuff you actually do as an adult is just like, oh, it's kind of in one ear and out the other. You know, it's just part of the weekly grind almost. And it wasn't a grind. I love doing it, but they just don't resonate with you long term the way those childhood memories do.
Right. Now, that makes sense. And how different is it to shoot a wrestling match than it is to shoot like a basketball game or a football game? Like, is the basic premise of it the same? You're still trying to tell a story, but like,
Well,
is it very different?
if you ask a normal person that, they would say it's similar. However, okay. So most of the places I worked, everyone knew me, and we all had respect for one another, which meant if a match sucked, I would be running camera on that apron and be telling them to go home, or calling ad libs. Like, I have past finishes to guys during the course of a match if something needed to be changed while running camera. So obviously, I'm not going to be giving advice to Zion on the court,
Right.
But in wrestling, I had a little bit more freedom to be outspoken. And it helped the fact that not only I was running camera, for the most part, I was actually editing the show as well. So I would know as far as like, oh, I need to drop audio here from my camera because I know I'm about to tell them something that doesn't need to be on the broadcast version or stuff like that. So, yeah, it was vastly different. I'm sure even WWE cameramen, because they have such a enormous crew, WWE cameramen don't have to make audibles because the referees are wearing what are called IFBs and giving signals and cues and all that kind of stuff. So it's not the cameraman's job on WWE to be giving cues, while it was more my forte, on the independent level.
That's awesome, man. Though, I mean, I found that interesting, and I wanted to save it to the end because I wanted to have a little time to discuss it. As you're trying to move through these questions and as you kind of stack these questions.
Right.
But you have lived an interesting life, my friend.
Thank you, man.
Done a lot of cool stuff. I have had an absolute blast sitting here talking to you. It has been a hoot. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on. And I mean it when I tell you this, that you were one of the first people that I found as I got into this. And I've appreciated your support. I know you've shouted out 10 questions. This particular show on your IG a couple of different times that I recall. And I just appreciate that support. And I appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with me for a little while.
Hey, man, I appreciate all the support, not just for me, but for the entire community. You're doing a great service, giving a lot of people a platform to sound off in a longer form and in a different environment than they would normally have. I think that's awesome. I know for me personally, when I'm, packing orders for 2 or 3 hours, I love when one of these are available because I don't have to mess with anything on YouTube. I can just let it roll and listen to these people talk. And I think it's awesome what you're doing. And Jimmy, I genuinely appreciate everything you do and let me be on here. Thank you, man.
Oh, no, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. So if you want to find Grant, I'll put all his stuff below, his IG, his YouTube. Do you still have the website? I haven't looked in a while. Do you still have the website?
It's grantscomics.com, but honestly, it's mostly just art stuff. I mean, there's a few slabs on there. It's a mimic of my eBay store. So if you're going to buy something from me, definitely use the website so I ain't got to pay the fees. But yeah, like Instagram, and I've finally started actually dropping content on the YouTube just by moving that Guess the Grade series that I was doing on Instagram over to YouTube. So as I say, make sure to follow me on YouTube to revel in all my pain and misery as I unbox these CGC issues.
No, but I'll post all that stuff down below so that you can easily go find Grant. Great member of the community. And like I said, a guy that I'm glad I found early on. So as always, guys, we appreciate you coming and spending a little bit of time over here on the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. And I always finish up the show like this. Remember to go over to Street Level Hero LA. I have that code over there, STC10. You can use that code to get 10% off your order, but most importantly, 10% of your overall order will be donated to the American Cancer Society for cancer research. So it's a big cause for me, very important cause for me. As I was talking about, my dad and my uncle and my wife's mother all passed from that horrid disease, and that is a big part of mine and Amy's philanthropy that we do in our real lives, as far as what we do with our real jobs. So glad I could bring that over here, and I appreciate JPG, kind of supporting that. So, guys, that's it. Grant's Comics. What an interview. What an interesting cat. This has been 10 Questions.